Hi, this is Luka Doncic.
Can he get it away in time on the step back? He does! He hits! He hits! And the Mavericks have won the game! Luka Doncic with a 30-footer to win it at the horn!
And you're listening to the Mavs Step Back Podcast.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome in to another episode of the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Trigg. You can find all of my Mavs content at Dalton_Trigg on Twitter. You can follow our podcast account on Twitter at Step Back Mavs. Be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. And as always, remember, if you listen on Apple Podcasts, go in there, leave us a review, put your Twitter ad or Instagram at, some kind of social media way of us getting in contact with you. And you could win a free Mavs Step Back t-shirt. So be sure to do that. Today, I am not joined by my co-host, Matt Galatson. He had some stuff come up, and I have a last-second special guest for you guys. Kevin Gray Jr. He is a sports radio host at 105.3 The Fan. He's got the Gray Area podcast. He's joined some of our live rooms on Green Room every now and then. And I'm sure y'all follow him on Twitter. And if you don't, that's at Kevin Gray Sports on Twitter. But Kevin, how you doing, man?
I'm great, Dalton. Good to be with you, man, here on the Mavs Step Back Podcast. I feel like I've arrived in the Mavs community. Mavrello follows me. I'm on the Step Back Podcast. I feel like I've arrived officially in the Mavs community this year.
The Mavrello account, he kind of went under a rock there after what happened during the off season, and then I see he just now recently appeared again. He's much more active on Twitter, so I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but we're gonna roll
remains
with
to
it.
be seen, right? That's right.
He's kind of hijacking everybody's memes, so we'll see how that ends up going for him. But yeah, man, it's good to have you on it. I've been on your show a couple times now, and I was just, when this happened, I was just like, you know what? I just talked to you not too long ago about potentially coming on here. Let's see if we can make it work. And sure enough, we did. And the Mavs, they just came off of a big win versus the Kings. I know the Kings aren't, they're not world beaters or anything like that, but it's
only when it comes to the Mavs.
Right. They could have hung their own banner last year with how they beat the Mavs 3-0 in the regular season. So going into this one, it was just kind of like, yeah, you expected a bounce back just because of how badly they got beaten down in Denver. That was just completely ridiculous how embarrassing that was. And Luka, he had a season low 16 points, and you expected a big bounce back, but it was also the third game in 4 nights. And not only the third game in 4 nights, but it was a 2:30 start. So it was like as close to a back-to-back-to-back as you can get. And
pretty much.
Yeah, and I mean, given the lack of success versus the Kings in the past, that you just kind of got this feel like that things could get bad in a hurry. But the Mavs, they led for the first time all season after the first quarter. They got off to a really good start. And, in the fourth quarter, and you were there, so you saw it too, and I'm going to get your thoughts on it. But in the fourth quarter, there was a little less than 9 minutes left. And the Mavs got a turnover. They were on a fast break. Sterling Brown hit a three-pointer to put them up 89-77. And at that point, you're thinking, okay, this is pretty much in the books. They're gonna get their first win versus the Kings. It's, no drama, no nothing. But typical Mavs fashion, they end up making it way harder for themselves.
You got to keep it close, yeah.
And then about 5 minutes after that happened, so it was under 5 minutes remaining. Buddy Hield hits a three, makes it 92-89. So the Mavs are only up 3 with, almost 5 minutes left. And you're starting to think, oh no, here we go again. The Kings have all the momentum. The Mavs lead is almost nothing at this point. And then, Luka, the ball goes off of somebody's foot. I don't know if it was Luka's or Tristan Thompson's or what, but it rolls into the backcourt. Luka picks it up, comes past half court. He's still standing on the logo, heaves up, a near half court shot, and it just hits the bottom of the net. And they go up six at that point. They immediately follow that with a turnover that leads to a Dorian Finney-Smith dunk. And sure enough, the Mavs end up getting the win 105-99. So they ended up making it a little bit more stressful than it needed to be, but they got the win. They bounced back. They're 4-2 on the season. They're 3-0 at home, which is, a much welcome sign.
How about that?
given their home struggles over the last few years. So what are your initial takeaways from that game yesterday?
It's interesting because Jason Kidd told us, after the game that part of the idea was to get the Mavs out in transition as far as their transition defense was concerned. And you saw that, look, they outscored the Kings 13-1 as far as fast break points are concerned. They converted 13 Kings turnovers into 20 points. And I thought that was huge in this game. You saw the huge outlet home run pass from Doncic to Dwight Powell. You saw how Ntilikina was able to help get them out in transition to get some easy buckets. But you knew a really good offensive team in the Sacramento Kings were going to try to stress the defense and put pressure on them. It was going to be incumbent upon the Mavericks to really be able to turn those transition plays into points, and they were able to do so. And you mentioned it, Doncic hitting that 36-footer, with about 4:53 left. And then they get the steal and they get the dunk by Dorian Finney-Smith, really kind of just turned things around in what was a wild sequence. It felt like a game of runs. I mean, the Mavs jumped out, 22-9 to start off the game. Doncic accounts for the first 17 points of the game, scoring or assisting on the first 17 points. The Kings come back with a 23-12 run of their own to kind of get back into the game, and it was a competitive game from there. So I thought the Mavericks handled themselves well, especially after a real bad loss on the road against a Denver Nugget team that's supposed to be really good this year, but the Mavericks weren't supposed to be that bad on the road against Denver. To come in to beat a team that beat them 3 out of 3 last year. I thought the Mavericks really handled themselves and grinded out a win, and defensively continues to show the improvements that I think a lot of us thought they were going to have last year, but they're improving defensively this year.
Yeah. And I mean, look, I feel like this is a better quality win than, the wins they had against Toronto and Houston, and even San Antonio, even though, San Antonio, they've had a bunch of close losses. This was on a little bit different level for me, because I think the Kings were actually good this year. They were undefeated on the road heading into that game yesterday, and now they're 3-1, but they've got some really good pieces. And former Maverick Harrison Barnes, going into that game yesterday, he was averaging 25 points per game. And, they held him to 15 points on 5 of 16 shooting. That was huge. De'Aaron Fox, who I thought would just, come in and kind of light the Mavs up, him and Tyrese Halliburton, they were each held to 14 points apiece. And they both shot, Fox shot 5 of 16 from the field, and Halliburton shot 5 of 14 from the field. So overall, the Mavs did a really good job defensively. And that's one of the things that sticks out to you about this team early on this season. Yeah, the offense has been clunky at times, and they're still trying to figure stuff out. But I think for the most part, they're just not hitting shots, because there's a lot of times where good shots are being generated. They're getting some wide open threes like they did yesterday. Dorian Finney-Smith had some, Reggie Bullock. They're getting good looks. It's just they're just not hitting them right now. And even yesterday, Dorian Finney-Smith, he had 13 points and 6 rebounds, 2 steals, and he made some big plays and everything, but he still didn't shoot the ball well. He was 5 of 13 from the field, only hit 1 of his 6 3-point attempts. Luka, he had 23 points, 10 assists, and 8 rebounds, but he only shot 1 of 7 from deep. And so for them to be able to grind out wins like this with their defense, which seems to be very real, that's a real thing that has improved tremendously so far this year compared to last year. I think that bodes really well going forward, because if you're establishing your defense now, and then those shots start falling later, like they should, it's just a variance thing. I think the Mavs could end up, really piling on some wins, the further this season goes. Now, obviously the competition's not, it's going to end up being better than what it's been so far. Like
Sure.
tomorrow they'll play the Miami Heat. The Heat have been amazing so far. Jimmy Butler is like a dark horse MVP candidate so far. Tyler Hero, he was my pick, my preseason pick to be most improved player this year, and he's played really, really well. He's almost averaging the same stats as Luka right now. So I don't know. I'm really optimistic about it. The defense is something that's very real. Speaking of defense and really offense too, one of my biggest surprises is Frank Ntilikina, because I liked him as a very low risk, but potentially high reward signing in free agency. And so far he's just completely, blown my expectations out of the water, with his early season contributions. And it seems like he's one of the first people to come off the bench now, and he's hitting his threes and he's playing great defense like he always does. Seems like he's in three places at once on the defensive end. So, what are your thoughts on Ntilikina and how he's played so far for the Mavs? And is there somebody else that's really caught your eye in the early season goings?
Yeah, I think Ntilikina has been fantastic. He comes off the bench, gets 12 points against the Kings, really helps the Mavericks get up and down in transition. As you mentioned, we knew he was going to be a pretty good defensive player coming in, but what's surprising most about him is that he's developing a little bit more consistency in terms of his jump shot, especially beyond the three-point line, which is huge to be able to provide not just the defensive presence coming off the bench, but the scoring punch also, because when the Mavericks signed, Sterling Brown and Reggie Bullock, the idea was that these were a couple of 3-and-D guys that could shoot the ball well from the three-point line. But now you got an added bonus in a Ntilikina who defensively is going to continue to play well. But if he can continue to knock down shots, that really helps out that second unit, especially when you start thinking about, where the scoring comes from those second units. And you mentioned, another guy who I think has really stood out to me so far, and part of that second unit has been Jalen Brunson. I'm seeing a different Jalen Brunson in terms of his ability to attack. He seems much more aggressive in terms of not just making plays for himself and getting to the rim, but making plays for others around him and being much sharper with his passes and seeing things on a little bit higher level. So I think Jalen Brunson has been a real stabilizing force for this team early on so far this year, and that bodes well, especially when he is the primary ball handler and facilitator for that second unit. Brunson's got to be able to make sure that he's generating offense and making sure that the ball movement continues to be there, because I think at times, and you may have observed this too, especially when at times Luka Doncic and Jalen Brunson are on the floor together and Brunson's the primary ball handler, it feels like there's a lot of standing around at times offensively. But at the same time, I want to see the team be able to move without the basketball better so that Brunson can be able to continue to make some more plays. But Frank Ntilikina and Jalen Brunson, to me, have been really, really good so far. And that's important for a second unit that really needs to be able to provide some scoring, but also continue to play well defensively, especially in those non-Luka minutes that they're out there for.
Yeah, I really like the idea of having a guy like Ntilikina, with his length. He's got like a 7'1" wingspan or something like that. Always been a really solid defender. The offense is what's been the real question mark with him. But, I really like that backcourt pairing coming off the bench together. I think they will help each other tremendously, throughout the rest of this season. I definitely like that backcourt better than, Jalen Brunson and Trey Burke. So I think that has a lot more potential. I love the idea that, that Frank is only 23 years old. Just like I said, it was a low risk, potentially high reward signing.
Got a lot of room to grow. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of room to grow. And I think it's, it's working out as well as it possibly could have, at least early on. So, and we're going to get into this too, Kevin. I want to get your thoughts on it, but everybody knows that I have not been a fan of Dwight Powell being in the starting lineup. That's putting it nicely. I don't have anything against the guy, Kevin. I think if he's going to play the minutes that he's been playing, I feel like it needs to either be off the bench or like we saw yesterday when he's starting next to Maxey, I think that's something you could do when KP is out. But, when KP's back, I feel like you need to bring him off the bench and pair him with Maxey because those two, that two-man pairing has played really well off the bench together in the past. And I just don't think playing Powell at center next to KP is a winning formula at the start of games because, we saw it. KP's only played 3 games so far this season out of the 6, but in those 3 games, they got off to rough starts in every single one of them and had to play from behind and only came back in those 2 against Houston and Toronto. So, where are you at on the starting lineup stuff? I've made it known that I want my ideal starting 5 is Luka at point guard, and then you have Tim Hardaway Jr., Reggie Bullock, slide Dorian Finney-Smith over to the 4, and then have KP at the 5. So, where are you at on that? What do you think on the current starting lineup when KP is healthy? And where are you on KP overall in general?
It's interesting because as you were running down who you believe your starting 5 should be, I almost feel like that Maxey's earned the ability to get back into that starting lineup because I guess my ideal one, especially if the Mavericks are serious about continuing to improve defensively, you have Luka, you have THJ, Reggie Bullock's a better defender, but I know Dorian Finney-Smith's earned the right to continue to be the starter on this team, but the way he's shooting the ball right now, you may have to make the lineup change, especially until he gets right from the 3-point line. But I would love to see Maxey Kleber at the 4 and then Porzingis, when he's healthy at the 5. You said, Kevin, that doesn't necessarily jive with the way that the Mavericks said that they want to play, Porzingis this season, want to play him more at the 4. But I feel like for a more effective defensive lineup, Maxey's been terrific defensively, especially with his blocks, weak side help and really, defending the paint well. Dwight Powell feels like an energy guy off the bench type of person, as you were kind of mentioning. He provides you a lot of energy, a lot of hustle, will get up and down the floor, good in pick and roll situations where he can finish, at the rim. I don't like this idea of him shooting threes. I don't know who put that into his mind or why the Mavericks thought it would be a good idea. Let's get Dwight Powell shooting more threes, from the 3-point line this year. But for Porzingis, look, we said coming into the season that the Mavericks' health or the Mavericks season depended on Kristaps Porzingis' health and his ability to be available for the Mavericks a majority of this season. And he's already missed half of the 6 games that they've played. So it just lends to more frustration, I think, on Mavs fans' part about what can Kristaps Porzingis actually be. And I think what concerned me most about Porzingis before he went out was that he was trying to do all this stuff off the dribble, trying to create off the dribble and shooting mid-range jump shots, off the dribble. And Jason Kidd had said, look, we want to get KP to doing some of the things he was doing in New York. And I told folks around me, I said, I don't know if his body will allow him to do the kinds of things that he was doing in New York. And if you're trying to get him, posted up, or if you're trying to get him to do stuff off the dribble and to create and take those mid-range jump shots, one, he's got to become a more effective mid-range shooter in order to get him to the kind of player that you want him to be. But 2, I don't know if the best use of Kristaps Porzingis, even at the young age that he is at 25, 26 years old, the way that his body has broken down at times throughout his career, that you want him doing off the dribble things and doing extra movements that could put more stress on his body that could potentially have him missing games. So while I'm down on Porzingis at the moment, just because he hasn't shown the ability to stay healthy, even if you're a detractor of Kristaps Porzingis, you got to see him get healthy, because if you feel like you want to move him to be able to get other pieces to build a championship team around him, that can't happen unless he's on the floor and playing good basketball. And even if he is, the catch-22 may be the Mavericks feel like, well, we won the trade, and Porzingis is becoming the player that we thought he could be alongside Luka Doncic. So either way, Porzingis has got to get healthy and be on the floor for consistent stretches for the Mavericks to be able to be where they want to go as far as the team is concerned, in my mind.
Yeah. Look, it's super disappointing because, this podcast was just one of the outlets that was basically screaming every chance we got, KP, this is the first time he's been fully healthy for an entire offseason.
Same here.
He's had a chance to really, work on his game and not have to rehab and everything. And so for him to have what the team's calling lower back tightness after just 3 games, and now he's missed 3 full games, it's just, I don't know. It's really it's almost depressing for me because I mean, it's kind of a big reality check. Like, man, this guy, he's 7'3". Maybe he just can't stay healthy. Maybe it's not just, maybe it just hasn't been some bad luck stuff. Maybe this is just what he is. Now, given it's early, there's an 82 game season this year. The Mavs are obviously going to be cautious whenever they can with KP because the main goal would be to have him completely healthy for the postseason when they get there. But KP being healthy and playing as much as he can in the regular season, that's going to determine where the Mavs end up in the standings in the West. And it's a bloodbath in the West throughout the course of an entire season.
That's right.
I mean, and now you got a situation where it's not like you're just fighting for, the top 8 spots. They've got the play-in stuff now. So if you end up in the play-in, you're 1, potentially 2 losses away from your season just being completely over. And there's just a lot of good teams out there. So I would say, given everything that's happened so far, including KP getting hurt, for the Mavs to be 4-2 right now, I feel pretty good about that, given how they've played at times.
Exactly, especially offensively.
Yeah, like if you look how this offense has performed in these first 6 games, and if all you did was give somebody the offensive numbers, the percentages that they've shot and everything, and you said, okay, what's their record after these first 6 games? People would be like, oh man, they probably went like 1-5, 2-4 at the most, and it's like, no, well, they're 4-2. Oh, sweet, sweet, we can work with that.
Yeah, it's crazy because you look at some of the numbers. The Mavericks are 27th in the NBA in offensive rating at 99.3. The only 3 teams that are worse than them are the Rockets, the Thunder, and the Detroit Pistons. That's how wild the Mavericks have been offensively. But again, to your point earlier, defensively, they've been able to be pretty good. And as long as their defense continues to travel, you hope at some point they start making shots, especially from the 3-point line. Like, they can't keep shooting, 21, 25% from 3 all season long. But it's wild to think that they've got a sub 100 offensive rating and are still 4-2 on the early part of the season so far.
And I mean, look, I kind of joked about this on the timeline yesterday during the game, but Dorian Finney-Smith needs to have another baby, Kevin. He needs to have another baby, because when he did, when his
was
wife,
like Superman, yeah.
When his wife gave birth last year, he was shooting like 50% from 3 from that point on.
That's true. That is true.
Maybe Dorian Finney-Smith needs to take a few days off and get to a point where that happens again. Because even if, in all seriousness, though, he's not going to continue to shoot 18% from 3. He's too good of a player. I mean, he's not a superstar or anything like that, but I mean, he's shot nearly 40% for the last 2 seasons. So this guy, he can actually shoot the ball, and he's not going to continue to shoot 32% overall and 18% from 3. That's not going to happen. Luka, he's not going to continue to shoot as badly as he has from 3 either. I think he's right there around that 20, somewhere between 20 to 23% on 3s for the season so far. I mean, like I said earlier, a lot of people have mentioned it, but it's one of those things where it's like they're going to have an uptick at some point. And there's going to be some team that's going to be like the victim of like a 40-point massacre when that variance comes back around. And, maybe, hopefully it's against the Miami Heat tomorrow night, but, we'll see how it goes. But so, Kevin, we're going to move on to just like a quick preview of this Mavs Heat game. It's going to be on TNT. What are you looking for in that matchup? How do you like the Mavs' chances on it, given the starting lineup and the depth that the Heat have? It'll be the Mavs' first time playing against the guy that they were the bridesmaids for, so to speak, in free agency, and Kyle Lowry. So how do you see that game going tomorrow?
I think the biggest thing for me is just to continue what you're doing on the defensive end. You mentioned it earlier, Jimmy Butler, dark horse MVP candidate so far for the Miami Heat, are playing really good basketball, at the moment. Can this Dallas Mavericks team continue to improve shooting the ball from the 3-point line, but guarding and having consistent starts? like they did in this game against the Sacramento Kings for the first time in 6 games. They actually won the first quarter. So getting off to a quick start, establishing yourself, especially on the defensive end, but more importantly, making shots and getting yourself into an offensive flow and rhythm where guys are moving the basketball, creating that kind of energy that puts stress on this Miami Heat defense. You've got Bam Adebayo, you've got Kyle Lowry, you've got, Jimmy Butler, as you mentioned, an improving Tyler Hero. This is going to be a game where I want to see during the first 5 minutes how a team in the Dallas Mavericks sets the tone, not only defensively, but are they hitting shots? And you saw how Luka opened up the game against the Kings. He was ultra aggressive, getting to the basket and trying to look for his own shot to get himself offensively going, in a rhythm there. And it worked, especially in the first quarter. So how much more aggressive will Doncic be, to me, in the first 5 minutes will tell me a lot about how the Mavericks mentality will be building off of a win at home against the Sacramento Kings. But should be a fun one to watch. Look, it's the Heat and the Mavericks. A lot of history between these two teams, obviously, throughout the years. And it's always fun to see these two teams go at it, especially the way that the Miami Heat have opened up, but more importantly, how the Dallas Mavericks are building on this going forward, because they got to come out of that sub 100 offensive rating if they want to go anywhere this season.
Yeah, there's definitely no love lost there. And it's kind of weird too, because the way their team, especially in the bubble, and I mean, it's still kind of the same way now, but it's like the way the Miami Heat have constructed their team, I kind of find myself, I don't want to say I'm rooting for them, because that's not true. But
you can't say that on this podcast.
No. I mean, you're not rooting for them, but like when in the bubble, like, when they were playing against other teams and you were looking at their roster compared to others, it was just like, man, I hate how fun this roster is.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And it's kind of the same situation now. But I mean, the Mavs, if KP is still out for tomorrow's game, which, that's yet to be seen. I think he's still questionable. That's going to hurt. Maxi Kleba, he strained his back. He only played 7 minutes against the Kings, so that's now something else that the Mavs have to worry about. But Bam Adebayo, he is supposedly questionable for tomorrow's game, according to what I'm seeing on ESPN. So if he's missing tomorrow's game, that at least makes me feel a little bit better that, Bam Adebayo isn't having to go against Dwight Powell in the starting lineup. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes, but it should be a fun game. Luka, aside from one game last year, over the course of his career, he tends to struggle against Miami, and that's basically just because of how hard-nosed they are. They're, they hand check a bunch. It doesn't get called there because of their defensive rep and all that stuff. So he tends to struggle a little bit more against the Heat, and hopefully he can break out. And because we really haven't seen, Luka had that logo shot against the Kings yesterday, Kevin, but as far as his total points and everything like that, we really haven't seen a Luka breakout game this year. And it's really, I think it's only a matter of time before we get that Luka flamethrower game, because this dude, he was the preseason MVP, just like he was last year. And now for the second straight year, he's kind of gotten off to a slow start. And I don't know what the reasons for that are. He seemed like he was in extremely good shape heading into training camp. He played in the Olympics this offseason, and I figured that would give him a head start on getting in shape for training camp and all that. And, had a more normal offseason than what it was after the bubble. So I don't know what the deal is. Maybe he's just a player that just doesn't get off to fast starts, because we know what he does. We know what he does when it gets, past Christmas and on into the rest of the season. But hopefully he can break through and get his first really good overall outing against the Miami Heat. But I guess we'll end on that, Kevin. I mean, where do you see Luka Doncic heading from where he's at right now? Because the first 6 games, like I said, he's averaging about 23 points. Let's see, 23 points, 8 and 7. I think that's right. So like he's on pace for like close to a triple-double average, but it's still, his shooting percentages are awful. And it's not up to his mega star standings after being a an all-NBA first-team guy the last 2 years. So where do you see Luka, or how do you see Luka getting out of this current funk that he's in?
I think a lot of it started with the way that he started against the Kings, trying to get to the basket early to establish some offensive rhythm for himself, and then working his way out. Because, you saw last year the development of his mid-range game. We saw the one-legged fadeaways and some of the things that he's developed from a mid-range standpoint. Being able to work from the inside out, I think, is going to be good for Doncic, especially knowing that he's going to still obviously be the primary ball handler and facilitator, for this team. He's got to find ways to get easy buckets early to be able to get in some confidence so that as he starts to move out as the game goes on, that he has the ability to knock down those shots. And maybe there is something to, the idea, because he played a ton of basketball, this summer and did a lot of training, obviously, and can prepare for the season. That maybe he's off to a little bit of a slow start because he might be a little tired from all the basketball that he was playing, to start off with. So he won't continue to shoot at the clip that he's at, but while he is still struggling a little bit from the three-point line or from the outside, how aggressive he remains getting to the basket, getting easy buckets, getting to the free throw line where he needs to continue to obviously improve there to get him some offensive rhythm. I think it's going to be key for him. And as long as he continues to do that, the jump shots will come as the season goes on, but remaining aggressive is the big thing for him.
Yeah, and I mean, look, they had the new rule change with how fouls are called this year, and for the most part, I feel like he's adjusted to that well. But he's not getting calls on just normal foul stuff. like Kevin. Honestly, I feel like he has adjusted really well to not trying to bait guys into fouls. He's just he's being aggressive and driving and basically getting whacked. Like there was one play against the Kings where De'Aaron Fox just had his arms wrapped around his waist, not all the way, obviously, but he was basically holding on to his waistband. And, Luka wasn't able to get the call for that. And he ended up getting a technical foul yesterday that he'll have to watch, he'll have to watch that stuff through the rest of the regular season. But to me, I feel like he's adjusted to the new rule pretty good, but he's just not getting calls right now on the regular stuff, and I think it's really frustrating him. So once he starts getting some calls, once the shots start falling, I think we're gonna see more of what we expected from the preseason MVP favorite, going the rest of the way. But Kevin, look, man, I'm gonna let you get out of here. I really appreciate you coming on such short notice. It was nice to finally get you on here, and we'll definitely have to do it again sometime, man.
Definitely, man. I appreciate the invite. I love what you guys do over at Mavs Step Back. You and Matt Gladson and all the guys and gals that do the work there, and I appreciate the invite, man, and looking forward to doing it again sometime for sure.
Yes, sir. We appreciate it. And again, guys, that is at Kevin Gray Sports. He does a lot of stuff for 105.3 The Fan. He's got the Gray Area podcast. Be sure to go check him out. Give him a follow on Twitter and all that good stuff. So, guys, we appreciate it. That's going to do it for another episode of the Mavs Step Back podcast. Like I mentioned at the beginning, be sure to go like, rate, and subscribe on all your favorite podcast platforms. And remember, if you listen on Apple Podcasts, be sure to go give that review. Put your Twitter or Instagram ad in there, and you're automatically entered for a chance to win one of our very nice Mavs Step Back t-shirts. We will see you guys next time. We'll probably come on here after Miami Heat game tomorrow night. Y'all have a good one.